What?
I would like to call to order the April 2023 operations meeting, please. For a motion to approve the agenda by Mr. Hall and a second by Mr. Lightfoot. All who are in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I ask for approval of the minutes from March of 2023. Can I have a second? Mr. Hall, sorry, the first was Mr. Forsythe. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have, due to extenuating circumstances, Legislator Sheridan will be attending remotely from 2252 Lake Ridge Drive, Belmont, North Carolina, 28012. Legislator Jeanette will be attending remotely from 1350 County Route 53, Brazier Falls, New York, and Legislator Terminelli is excused. Okay. On to the resolutions. I have first up from the Sheriff's Office. Hi, Sheriff, how are you? I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the Sheriff's Office to accept a 2023 State Criminal Alien Assistance Program funding from the Bureau of Justice Department, moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Reagan. Go ahead, Sheriff.
Good evening, everybody. So this SCAP grant is an annual grant we've done for many, many years at the Sheriff's Office. It's a federal grant. SCAP stands for State Criminal Alien Assistance Program. We get monies for certain inmates we have that are classified federally to qualify for this grant. This past time frame, we collected $10,610. There's an agency that actually qualifies as a pass-through agency that has to get a percentage of this grant. That's where you see the 2,334. The rest, 8,276, has to be spent somewhere in my facility. And I'm looking to spend that for our body cam program at the jail that we are currently instituting with our COs. So that's where the money's will go.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the Sheriff's Office for the cost of prescriptions for the MAT program, moved by Mrs. Haggard, seconded by Mr. Forsythe. Sheriff.
Thank you. So the MAP program that we discussed last fall, the new legislator stands for medication assisted treatment. It's a mandate that New York State decided last year they're going to enforce into our correctional facilities, state and county. When we were putting together this program early last year, many things to set up for, but budgetary wise, we didn't start the program until October. Obviously, the budget was already set. So back then, there was a couple issues. One, we knew the budget was going to be having only an estimate involved. And the second would be the bigger question, how many inmates would qualify for MAT? And then obviously the second, how much would the cost be? So we were kind of just throwing out some numbers last fall because we just didn't know where we would be. And I'll give you some figures where we are now, but we set in the budget for 150,000, but we put in there contingency of another additional 500,000. So really it's 650, but that's why I'm here today. So today I can kind of explain where we are as far as the cost for prescriptions of MAT. And I've got three figures for January, February, March. And I just got the March numbers this morning. For January, the cost for prescriptions for the MAT program cost $45,415. In February, it was $45,986. I know Joe's writing these down. And the third is this month it actually bumped up some to $57,376. So if you average those out, it almost comes right to per month 50,000 per month. It's 49 and some change, 800. It's very close to 50,000 per month or MAT. So we can see we got a trend that's going up. I can tell you the population count that's been on MAT for this month. I've got it here somewhere. I just got the figure this morning. So we have 116 inmates currently in our facility. Today, 61 of those individuals are on the MAP program. And that calculates out to 53%. Looking for a percentage. So over half of our population qualifies for the MAP program. Hence why we have the high cost of prescription drugs on the MAP program. Now, if you remember, I came here either a month or 2 months ago about a sublocade contract with Endeavor. We have inmates that are on a sublocade. It's a one-time shot for a month. We went into a contract, I believe Mr. Perkins signed it a few days ago, is that correct? Where we got 19% off of that drug. So the figure I have, we have 24 inmates currently on that Endeavor sublocade at 19% off. If you figured it out, we'd save $8,736 a month for the county savings. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to do everything I can as far as getting down the cost, but they are what they are at some point. So obviously, with only budgeting 150,000, we've already spent 150,000 in 3 months. So we're looking to take 500 out of the contingency, but to pay the bills for the MAP prescriptions.
Okay, first up question, Mr. Reagan.
How many of the 60 or so inmates are on methadone? How many are on Suboxone? How many are on this other medication?
So again, the sublocade was 40% are on it. Out of the 24 of the 61, so 40% roughly. Nobody's on methadone right now, currently in the facility. Matter of fact, since we started the MAP program, we only had 2 individuals with methadone. Matt Doctor, Dr. Path, he's kind of gone away from methadone as a treatment, more sublocade and some other drugs. I don't know the other ones. I can get you all those figures as far as percentage of what drugs are to what inmates. I can get all that from our administrators. But I do know the sublocade is 24 to 61. But we have no methadone at the facility presently.
Mr. Lightfoot.
What qualifies an inmate to participate in the MAP program?
There's criteria that the doctor sets up along with the criteria that the state handed down as far as policy procedures. When they come into the facility, they have, I believe it's 24 hours to get evaluated by the doctor or nurse. Depending on their blood pressure, their, all the things as far as they check for when they initially take them in, their history, their past history, if they're prescribed on the outside, some clinic or a doctor has them on a certain amount of drugs, this will qualify them for the MAP program. So there's a schematics that we have to follow that the state set, as follows policy procedures. There's a checklist that's done. They do a checklist, then the doctor scores the checklist, and that determines the individuals put on the MAP program.
And that's what I'd be interested in, is what's on the checklist.
Sure.
What exactly,
I can send you our MAP policy. We'll have it spelled
if
out.
I could see a copy of that, that would be great. I'll save you some time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Next up was
Yeah,
Mr.
I'll send it
Smith.
to all the links.
All right.
Next up, Mr. Smith.
Sheriff, you indicated this is a program that's mandated by New York State.
It is.
It's so, if so, then how much of the cost of this seems to be quite significant? Would we see reimbursed by the state or federal government?
I believe last year, trying to remember the figure, I think they gave us 110,000 to start the program. I don't know what, they haven't given us any or said anything about money's budgets being processed. I don't know what we're gonna get this year, if we're gonna get any or get more. That's up to the state budget that's passed down, but I believe the figure was 110. That's all they gave us last year to start the program. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it was.
Follow up. Also, another question, is there any program in place or in effect to reduce or eliminate this need for dependency on drugs?
That's a bigger, broader question. There isn't anything in our facility because it's mandated that, if they qualify, that they will get these medications. We have programs in our facility, but they're not programs that tend to, reduce their dependence on the drugs. That's something that they get out, just clinics and things of that nature. Our programs are more educational, of that nature.
Next, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. More of a statement than anything. This is a flawed system. I'm not gonna support this or the next resolution. I know it needs to be done, but you know, there's gotta be some accountability. We've got all these drug addicts in here. All we do is help them out. We just keep enabling them. You know, give them safe places to do drugs. Let's give them clean syringes. Let's keep taking money from the hardworking taxpayer and pay for all these drug addicts. I just, you know, there's no accountability. They eat better than our older folks who worked their entire life, done nothing wrong. It just isn't right. We're the county, the state, is the biggest drug dealer there is. And it's just wrong. You know, and I know some of them, it's not their fault. The doctors they've gotten hooked on drugs, but somehow we've got to dry them out, clean them up. I just can't support it. The system's wrong. Thank you.
Mr. Webster.
Presume probably a lot of them, if they commit on it, box or whatever, they're automatically fall. Probably pretty sure that they commit on medication. They be reimbursed for Medicaid when they get to jail. You just pay for it. You need
Was. I'll let you have your own opinion on that, but my opinion would be what the circumstances would led to that assault. He was on the map.
Mrs. Haggard was next.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, back. Does anybody else want first hit at the apple? Okay, Mr. Hall, you were. We'll come back to you.
sure.
And to share with the public a report regarding some successes, failures, in that program now that we're 6-7 months into it. I know I think we'd all agree that the public deserves to know, deserves an element of transparency regarding where the significant amount of tax dollars are going, even if the screws are to us from the state regarding the mandate. So that's.
So the success rate would be when they get out to track those individuals. And sometimes that's hard to do. Privacy laws. Will they give you a report back? There's some logistics involved on success rates as far as this is concerned. I had spoken to county administrator, and we are developing a 6-month review. But we already had in place that we were going to get this done. Obviously it takes a while to get the data. My administration, we had a meeting, as we do jail administration meeting every week. I already tasked my jail administrator to, in the future, next 3 weeks, get together a 6-month report of Matt to tell us where we're at as far as cost, and then obviously numbers and any other issues that we may have. But I'm not going to snow you when it comes to the success rate. Hard to gauge sometimes.
Mr. Forsythe.
Yeah, I just like to comment on Mr. Perkins. Everything he said, I agree 100% with. The only problem is we gotta pay these, and sheriff stuff. Family knows it's gonna cost $50,000 a month. It is what it is. Our state reps, hopefully, once an evaluation is done, and they find out, no, it doesn't work or something can be done. For the time being, so that I will support it. I hate it.
Mr. Burke.
Anecdotal report. When we use these drugs, is there apart from the drug? Is there any anecdotal for us?
Yep, so this part, the grievance, the inmates have a right to grievance, there's rules, they don't grieve and things like that, so those grievances has gone down in numbers. Whether it's from that or not, I don't know, but we have gone down, and that's something I'll put in our 6-month report. We streamlined how this is done, but that's a lot of movement for our inmate population, talking over half the inmate population is moving throughout the facility. That's done pretty well. We set up a nice safety net as far as how we move our inmates and distribute the drugs. We've had no issues with that. So we put that in gear to try to make it as safe as possible, because the facility, when it was built where there wouldn't be a lot of movement, interaction between inmates and pods. This kind of forced our hand at where we had to. We couldn't bring the drugs into the pods. We had to bring the inmates out to a certain area. But that's been pretty well receptive, and it's gone smoothly. And thanks to my administration and COs, they do a nice job as far as safety of moving inmates in the facility. That part has gone very well. Dr. Pat has done an excellent job as far as instituting the mandate. He works hard there. He's there every week. He's worked out very well for us. Our clinic manager, who started a week ago, is really engaged in it already. I just talked to her 2 hours ago. She's doing a great job so far. So when it comes to the logistic part of it, our facility is doing a very good job. The monetary part, obviously, it's a hard pill to swallow. And I want to let you know, as sheriff of this county, I'm not in agreement with this either. The state has a mandate; they should be paying for the mandate, not shove it down our throats. So I'm with most of you here when it comes to mandates and reimbursements. Don't get me wrong; I just seem to be the bearer of bad news. I've got to operate this facility. I am mandated as sheriff to operate this facility. There's mandates, whether it be the HALT Act, bail reform, or whatever is in that jail. If we don't conform to that, you're going to be faced with many lawsuits and then many other things that you don't want to have to deal with. So if you don't agree with it, you agree with it, and I'm in some of these camps. But I, as elected sheriff, and I run this facility, I have to run it to the best of my ability. I just have to keep that.
Okay, well, I got a list. Mr. Denisha.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just want to echo Ms. Perkins. It's another unfunded state mandate. You said last year we received about $110,000. So that's a little over 2 months. It's $50,000 a month, a little over 2 months. Well, I saw a commercial on television the other day. Safe injections. This is, I don't understand it. There's some. And for the state to say that, I guess I would say if someone's arrested for DWI, for jail, we give them beer, give them whiskey. Don't get anything. So I guess to to continue to enable, and that's what we're doing. We're enabling these people. And the state is going to hell in a handbasket.
So anybody else have a first question? So next up for seconds was Mr. Lightfoot first.
Thank you very much. If I may, to Mr. Soper, what is the budgeted amount for Matt in our jail for this year,
That
if it's available?
I can get for you after, but while we were discussing, I did verify some of the revenue numbers in the state aid that was asked about here. So the 100 that the sheriff had mentioned for last year was 160 for this year. Now, 54 of that was passed on to the jail. The rest of that remained in community services because there are some chemical dependency counselors that are program. They're paid out of the community services budget. So not paying additional costs. Jail. Also, we applied some previous funding. We redirected some funding and say that we had for forensic mental health to the jail, 121,000. And the opioid settlement funds that we received, we budgeted 146,000, just over 146,000 for opioid settlement funds for that. So
that was in budget. These funds here are, additional above and beyond what we need for budget. I will get you the budget.
But the monies that the sheriff referred to coming from the state, was that specifically earmarked for Matt and not attached to any of these other monies that we're getting?
Mat expansion, that was the 160, yes.
So in our budget, then, what I'd be looking for is the total amount of money that is budgeted for Matt and for medication. Because I'm looking at you coming back in here in a few months and asking for another couple $100,000.
Not saying that might not happen.
If
Just
if things
depends
just
on-
keep going the way, well, if things keep going, that's where it's gonna be. Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay,
And I too appreciate the position you're in, and I totally agree with the comments of co-legislators here. This, never mind, it's bad.
Mr. Webster was the next second.
Just figure, well, sure, figure, well, first of all, it sounds like everybody's beating you up here, but you're doing a great job. You're doing the best you can with very best. My question is, these grievances, you must keep track of them, right? I mean, could you give us a list of the grievances of who's on the meds and who's not on the meds? See what the difference in grievances are?
Per the 6 months.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. And it is hard. I echo the same thing these guys. I see other people who can't afford their high blood pressure. medicines, or diabetic medicine, but they're turning around and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on drugs for someone who you don't know if should we be starting some kind of rehab in there and saying you have a choice, you can do the rehab or.
Yeah, so I can answer that question. When they came out with this policy, that was some of the questions that we called the commission about. That was big no. Mandate is the mandate, MAT is the MAT, medications are medications that they qualify. And if they want them, then we'll get them. That's what the commission told us. So we did talk about rehab and is there a secondary thing to have this? And they were like, no, MAT mandate is the MAT mandate. And this is the way it's going forward. This is the way it's written and you will follow. So we did have that great question on your part, because that's the same question we had last year.
I would almost think. How's it out? You're leaving. Only a few of them.
Right, so some of these ones, from the community services, a couple of people that do come in and work with these people. Their end game is to place them in some clinics or get them some extra help. That's when they exit, because part of the MAT program is your exit strategy, not just giving out the drugs. There's other parts of it that we have to fill. One being when they exit the facility, if they want to continue to go to a clinic or this doctor or go here or there, these people on their exit strategy has to give them a plan on when they exit. So that can be a good thing. That part I can see where, okay, we're trying to get them help so they get off these drugs or go to a right spot clinics or, to other clinicians or however they want to do it. So that part, I can see that is kind of, it's the prescription part, the drugs part, different philosophies, right? Some people think you should stay on it and others say, why you keep them on it? For whatever reason, the state has landed, this is what we're gonna go. Do you agree with it or not?
I think probably be safe to say that once they get out, you got less of a chance to have more control over it.
Mr. Reagan was next. Mr. Reagan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important for the public to understand that if we did not fund this, and we had lawsuits filed against us, because it's now state law, we would lose the lawsuit and have to pay untold damages, could be in the millions, because it would probably be a class action suit. sometimes none of us like this idea, but the repercussions could be far worse than anything that, if we try to get around it. And I would just, urge my colleagues to not talk about the idea of providing beer and liquor to prisoners with some of the people in control in Albany. That could very well be the next mandate. Thank you.
Mrs. Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have my own. Anyway, my question or statement is, and I hope you'll be able to. This would tie into the next resolution too.
It will.
Pharmaceutical companies are making billions. And my guess is some of these medications must work because it's simple economics. The demand goes up and they start lining their pockets. Now, many of us in here, well, fewer than it used to be, are senior citizens. We know the cost of prescription drugs. It's high and it goes up every year. Do you know the price increases over the past year or so, these drugs compared to?
Well, I wouldn't, because the MAP program didn't start until October.
Okay,
Maybe the other ones, and there's an inflationary resolution. Our costs have gone up just for inflation. For sure. Definitely one of the reasons why our regular prescription drugs have gone up.
right. So that's why it tied it into the next.
Right.
That's like the diabetes medicine and antidepressants.
Everything.
or
I can say
whatever
everything
they
across the board has gone up.
Okay.
All the medication.
say.
Inflation.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hall.
Going inside is concerned. Nefarious connections with pharmaceutical companies and the financial interests they have in lobbying in DC and Albany, but my question is, do you know, are we required to use on-brand medications, or are we able to use generic substitutes?
It depends on what you're using for medication, whatever qualifies, be on a case-to-case basis of what certain medications. We do work diligently to try to keep the cost down, like in Denver, in front of you. But a lot of places are pretty similar in pricing. You might get this 19% off once in a great while, but we do with Kinney's a lot. Certain avenues, we use them because they're local. One, we try to stay local. Number two is the delivery, they deliver daily to us, where if we went with an outside county, sometimes we have to have, an inmate walks in that day, has to have that drug. It's great to have Kinney's right here in our backyard. We could just call them, bring it right over. See if we, someone out of the area, it'd be much more difficult, because run into some more issues. So those are some of the reasons why we use Kinney's. They're pretty similar with others. I know Dylan has crunched some numbers. We've been working at trying to reduce costs here and there, but sometimes it comes down to logistics. Like I just said, with Kinney's, you may cost be a little bit more, but you could be in less trouble as far as getting inmates certain drugs that day that are required. So you got, it's not always dollars and cents, although I'm very frugal with my money. Always been that way with budget. Sometimes those logistic things you have to take into consideration.
Anybody else? Mr. Smith.
This isn't really a question, it's just, I keep hearing this, and I'm looking at part of the resolution, and it refers to the correctional facility. And it's sad that our state doesn't want to focus on correcting behavior, just continuing behavior.
Okay, so I would like to say this. Buprenorphine, Suboxone, Sublocade, how it's delivered, and including methadone is the design. Right? So during this time that we're providing people with medications that's supposed to be targeting that U receptor and filling it so they don't have that craving, are we seeing fewer drugs enter the prison or the, sorry, jail? fewer drugs entering the jail system, because I know for a while they were concerned about other substances that were being brought in? Or are we just giving them the mandated drugs and they're still bringing in everything else under the sun besides?
Right now, I don't think we've seen, I'd rather get an actual number. They still will, they'll still try to get other drugs in there, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We've taken steps to combat that as much as we can. Drugs being brought in certain, otherwise I won't say why, because I don't want to get into the middle of how we combat it, but we've taken a couple steps in the last couple of years to reduce our, I know we have some reductions in the last couple of years as far as drugs being brought to the facility. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because I'm tipping my hand on how we combat that and some of the other issues, but I will look into that and see what the figure we come up with our six-month report.
So, and then for the citizens of St. Lawrence County who listen to this, it's very difficult for somebody who is a citizen, not in the system, not in the jail, to just say, hey, I want this MAT. They have to find a clinic that's willing to take them on as a patient. They have to find a payment source for the medication that they have. They have to fill out paperwork to see if they can be included in some of the state and federal programs. They have to come every week. They're given their appointment. We don't say, hey, Mr. Janisha, what day can you come? We say, we have an opening on Tuesday at 12:30. Be there, be square. If you can't make it, the next time we have an opening, we'll call you. Law-abiding citizens have a very hard time getting drug treatments. People that work for a living having a very hard time getting drug treatment. They almost compete for spots, places. So while I know that we have to do this, I am as ever disappointed in the process that goes on in Albany, where they make 90% of their decisions and I shake my head at. This is just another one of them. Mr. Hall, you had something else to say?
Yes, I would like to propose a friendly amendment to resolution. Which would be, need a motion before I say it.
You had,
Just say it.
State it.
So in the now therefore be it resolved. After the word resolved, with my proposal would be to insert despite its opposition, unfunded feature of the MAP. And then continue as written.
anybody want to second that? Mr. Smithers and Mr. Webster are both willing to second that. Any discussion on that addendum? Mr. Burke?
I think it's a good addendum. State should be paying whatever they mandate. I did want to say, as it relates to medications, treatment. I mean, as I'm listening to the conversations, is our community safer? When we send them out of the jail, hopefully, with their addiction in check or with their addiction treated. I wonder that. Yes, and we don't have to give any medications. I mean, we do, because we're mandated. But if we didn't, would there not be a greater degree of recidivism? People coming back in because once again they're craving drugs. I don't know the answer, but I don't think it's quite as simple as simply not doing it. Wholeheartedly agree with the resolution. They should be paying for what they mandate. But I can't help but wonder, medication assisted treatment saves lives.
Generally, the life of the person who's using the opioid. I've not seen any studies on how it affects the recidivism of people who are homicidal, generally violent. I do see a lot of people that go back and forth between the general public and with sheriffs back and forth. are getting treatment in general.
Yeah, I don't know the
But-
answer to.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's, well, you know, you work at the state psychiatric center, there's a lot of barriers. We hope it makes a difference, right? And someday we hope the state pays for the mandates.
Well, go around.
Just wanted to point out, differently, that you are, I agree, you made a very good point, here. It is so hard for people to get into treatment with private insurance. It's hard to get it, that's where the money should go, because, it's the combination of the drug and the changing of the person's behavior that has to take place. That's the problem. There aren't enough beds. Thank you.
It's a person.
Just remember, when we say the state should pay for it, we are the state. We are the state. We see it here to the tune of 600,000. Imagine what this is statewide. I can't even imagine. I'm just trying to do that. I can't even imagine what this number is. You know, whether we pay it, it's kind of like school taxes, property taxes. You know, if they put it down to the school district and property, it's still the same payers, you know? This is the same situation. We're still paying. So,
So just to keep on track here, we have an addendum that we need to vote on. Or, yeah,
And since it was a friendly amendment, if the sponsor of the resolution and their second agree to the friendly amendment, there's no need for votes.
so then as amended, all in favor? Any opposed?
No,
Motion carried. Oh, still, Mr. Perkins opposed, but still motion carried. Thank you. I don't have that. I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the sheriff's office for prescription costs at the correctional facility. Moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Fay.
Thank you. Kind of correlates with our last discussion. This is the regular prescription drugs at the jail. Again, I'll give you some figures. Started this year, January, we had, that month was 41,889. February, it was 34,692. And then again, I just got the figures this morning for March, it was 22,298. So at least the trend is going down from January to March. So as I said earlier, we had a budgeted amount of 175,000 for prescription drugs in our account. But this also isn't just drugs; it's medical supplies, syringes, and bandages, and all other parts of this. So this 400,000 isn't just going to be paying for prescription drugs; it's our whole medical supplies that is in this resolution. As you can see, the 175 is not probably going to make it anywhere here through the year. And here's the reasons, and I think I asked you before, was the inflationary cost from this time to last year is way out of control, something I can't control. Increased jail population, I can tell you my figures for just an average jail population for each last 3 years. In 2021, my average population was 111. For 2022 is 110. And already this year, my population average is 118. And I had a high of 138 on March 4th, which is for March, for a spring month, very high. Usually that's my low, for lack of a better term, in the jail is in the, the colder months, January, February, March. Usually there's a lag and my population goes down. This year, for this first time in 4 years, it increased a lot. As a matter of fact, it went up 32% from this time last year. So now you have a population of a third more, and that's a third more prescription drugs on average. Hence, that's one of the reasons why there's a bump up. The third reason we're seeing a big escalation is we have more inmates with mental health issues than ever before, many more. You could debate the reason. My opinion and what I see out there is you have a lot of closing of these psychiatric centers where probably some individuals should be going. They're not going, they're getting put on the street. They can't cope with it, or for whatever reason, they commit crimes because of their mental illness. They get arrested, they get put in my facility, and boom, prescription drugs and how to attend to these inmates escalates my costs and the county costs. I should say my costs, it's the county costs. So those three reasons are really big reasons that we've had escalation in our prescription drugs. Wish I had a crystal ball to tell you it might go down, but you know, it's going to depend on the inmate population, which we see is gradually going up. I mean, when I was at 138 population, I had 28 females in the female pod. It only holds 30. I was 2 people away from shipping out. We're almost shipping out. We haven't done that in several years. An additional cost to the county. You start shipping inmates to other facilities. Thankfully today, I just checked, there's 18 females in that pod, so we went down quite a bit, but it fluctuates. But we were only 2 away from shipping out. And every few months I come to you and talk to you and say, we're getting closer. It just seems like we're getting closer. Hopefully we won't. I can't predict that, but the prescription costs are going up, and we need some more monies in there, not just for that, but for medical supplies, because we only had a set amount, and that's not going to make it for the year for sure.
So just for the people who maybe don't know that, the inmates who have Medicaid, when they are arrested and put into the jail, automatically lose their Medicaid as a payment source because they're incarcerated. That's why it costs money. Mr. Perkins was first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe I've got a Durham mask. This is wrong again. I won't support it, like I said in the last meeting. You know, I know we have. It's got to go through, but to me, it's morally wrong. We have law-abiding citizens, elderly, who can't afford their medication. They choose maybe between prescription or to skip a meal. They still pay their taxes, pay for the criminals to have all the amenities. There has to be some sort of accountability in this, the state. They've got to pull their head out. They've got to do something. This is just ridiculous. This is like a 2% of our tax. Our tax levy. It's just wrong. So I won't be supporting it. And I'm not after you on it. It's the system.
Got it. Mr. Webster.
I'm just curious, the regular drugs, the 3 ones that you gave us. How many people do those monies serve? How many people are there? Is the regular drugs being used on percentage wise or?
I get that.
Look,
Next up is Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Sheriff, for your assessment. As it relates to the healthcare costs of physical medications. And I meant to ask you for, what do you see as far as the crime involved with drugs in the community? And I have a follow-up.
Yeah, so I can tell you that we did this survey just a little short while ago about inmates, and 70 to 75% of the inmates are in our facility for drug usage, drug sale, or committing crimes or drugs. That's about the range. 3 out of 4 people are in our facility, something to do with drugs. That's a high number, 100% high number. You can't beat that number. So that's definitely the population is in jail.
So the second is a comment. Either we do something about treatment in the community before people get to the jail, or we're going to pay more. So if we really need to come up with some kind of a solution for mental health, for substance abuse, and prevention, or we're going to be debating this issue every time the sheriff has to ask for more money because of who's incarcerated. So I guess, you know, my hope would be that we could come up with something that would provide treatment in the community and hopefully incarcerated.
I'm also a big fan of arresting dealers, arresting people who are bringing it in, throwing them in jail for as long as possible, arresting their friends. And making some sort of a statement that I'm all for treatment, I'm all for mental health care, but at some point in time, we have to address the fact that drugs flow in over the border, like my water does if I pour my container. Mrs. Haggard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's 75%. Does that include alcohol-related
No, they don't.
offenses? Or
Yeah,
just-
yeah, I would say that's, yes.
It would include that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I just, if I can make a comment on something that was said here, is that we are arresting the high-level drug dealers in this county. And they're coming from not just across the border, they're coming from Philadelphia and New York City, the Jersey area. Here's the problem. We arrest them, they go to prison, they do their time, they come right back here. I know what I'm talking about because I have information. They'll come right back in here and they'll set up shop again. Until, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, maybe I'll opine here, until they have a stronger sentencing for these high-level drug dealers, or we put them in, my opinion only, prison at a longer pace, they're gonna keep on doing this. And I can tell you that it's happening. I know the intel. They're just keep doing their time, come right back out, set up their shingle again. It happens time and time in this county, I know it. I know the facts, I know the intel, I know the players, and they just set up shop again. So I'm just as frustrated as you. I'm just as frustrated as the citizens of the county are. And, you know, we combat it with law enforcement, and all law enforcement agencies in this county are working hard on this. But if the end run is they can go to prison and then do their time and come back out and set up shingle again, to me, commonsensically, that's wrong. That's, to me, that'd be somewhat of a fix, an easy fix, but it's not happening. But I can tell you, the law enforcement community takes that, this is the #1 priority in this county. It's illegal drugs, and these dealers that come up from the area, set up shop, bring in guns, bring in violence, bring in gangs. It's happening, we combat it, we've got intel, we've got TTF units, we've got all the departments working on it, they're making arrests, and they're frustrated, because this is what happens. They come right back, or somebody else fills their shoes and they come right back. The old quote, this isn't your father's Oldsmobile. This isn't your father's Oldsmobile County anymore. It's different than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. I'm old enough to know that. And it's sad. It's not something I want to state, but it is what it is. And it's the sheriff of this county and all law enforcement agencies. It's not like we're not out there trying to deal with this problem. We are. And working hard at it, all of us. All of us are working hard. It's a battle every day. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
And I guess I should clarify, Sheriff, when I say that, I'm not talking about our local level.
No, I know.
It's
I just
It's
wanted
a
to say
federal
that.
issue.
I'm not taking
you know.
that's what you said. I want.
I miss the Reagan days when Nancy Reagan was walking into a drug house in an FBI jacket and saying like, we as the Fed need to do something. I believe it's a federal problem. And I agree with you that your guys do everything possible. I know how hard you work at it. I know what it means to you. But I just think when it comes to border security, when it comes to what the feds kick into this, I think it needs to be a bigger approach. Mr. Reagan?
I don't have any.
Mr. Lightfoot?
It's a federal issue, as you stated, with the border issues and things like that. But don't think for a minute that this whole problem, these are state drug laws that we are enforcing and participating in the enforcement of federal laws. Most of the jails in the state of New York, all of the jails have prisoners that have committed state crime. So until the people in Albany put their big boy pants on and act like they should and pass the laws that keep these people locked up, as the sheriff said, because that, nothing else is going to work. Let these people out of jail, most of them are gonna go right back to where they were when they were arrested. And they'll be back on the street drugs before you know it. Now, yeah, hopefully some of them won't. But I think the majority, and the sheriff can probably attest to this, when you get a guy in there one time, and that happens. So people in Albany have got to smarten up and start enacting laws that have some teeth in them. One of them would be reinstituting bail.
That would be lovely. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
As always, we do thank you. Everyone. Next up, I have a resolution calling on Governor Hochul and New York State lawmakers to reverse course and restore the biomass as an important renewable energy source, strengthen the economy, encourage land stewardship and responsible forestry practice. Moved by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Mr. Reagan. Mr. Reagan is going to speak first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As everyone knows, we addressed this not too long ago and brought up a very similar resolution asking the state of New York to do precisely this. Sadly, it was in the news just in the past couple of days that Governor Hochul has abandoned her position. She had included in the budget language that would have kept Fort Drum Cogen as a biomass facility, and most servers believe that that would send a strong signal to the Public Service Commission to keep the cogen as eligible for the same treatment as other renewable energy sources. The big concern here is the number of jobs, the impact on our forestry industry, the impact on our forest landowners, the impact on farmers and others who own woodlands. The cogen provided an opportunity for not just the 28 jobs at the cogen in Watertown that provide us with provide Fort Drum with a secure energy source that, you know, was the only one of its kind in the country that, you know, was not dependent on the vulnerabilities of the electric grid. But, you know, what we here in St. Lawrence County are also concerned about is the number of jobs that are being impacted because this cogen is going to close. Whether we're talking about the pellet plant in Louisville, whether we talk about the sawmill in Ogdensburg, whether we talk about the trucking jobs, whether we talk about the jobs in our forests, our logging companies, there are a lot of people and businesses that are going to be impacted. And at a time when decent middle-class jobs are at a premium here in St. Lawrence County, I just find it outrageous that our governor would swap her opposition to closing the cogen for some little advantage in the budget negotiations in Albany. These people aren't pawns. These people are real people who have been struggling and working to support families, and their livelihoods are being ripped out from underneath them in order to provide certain people in Albany with a political advantage in their budget negotiations. And I find that wrong and outrageous.
Mr. Smithers.
Whereas I'm in complete agreement with what Legislator Reagan has said, and also in addition, whereas in addition to the number of jobs which he referenced, this is a very practical facility that it utilizes a lot of scrap wood that would otherwise be just left on the ground to rot. Whereas the emissions that are of concern are not as significant as emissions from other sources. And whereas a lot of forestry practices now replant a lot of trees, so they're acting very responsibly, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Smithers. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with our colleagues. The jobs. It's not just the jobs at work, the biomass facility at Drone. It's all the small loggers. I called around, talked to a bunch of the small loggers. It ranges from 15 to 85% of their business. Some of these are small family-owned businesses. They'll end up shutting down. And as Mr. Smithers just said, these tree tops, the stumps, they're all going to lay on the ground to rot, create methane gas. It's not environmentally sound. 20 years ago, the Environmental Climate Council said that this is the best source of renewable energy at the time. Now they've changed course. And it's not just that. We have our defense, national defense right there. You go and you put it, take it off a standalone grid that they can maintain. Now you're putting it on a public service, which we've seen all across the nation. They're subject to cyber attacks. It's insane. You know, the state or Albany, the environmentalists, they're very intelligent people. But Dan Bongino says it best. They're smart, stupid people. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? I too am worried about the effects of this. I know that in Louisville, all of the trees, scraps, branches that are collected at the curb are hauled over to the town. One of the local loggers pick them all up, add them to their pile and take them to the cogen plant. So now Louisville will have to come up with some resource to get rid of that scrap wood. But my biggest concern, I guess, is you had a freestanding, reliable, private electric grid that powers Fort Drum, which is a huge section of our national defense, at least in this area. And I think it was Thursday, they said they went to National Grid, which increases the cost of them operating and leaves them open to cyber attack, leaves them open to running out of electricity, leaves them open and vulnerable to people with bad intentions. I don't think that's good for New York State. I don't think it's good for the East Coast. And I'm hoping at some point in time they look at that in this budget. And they have put out multiple different certifications that you can get in New York State from the DEC and from different agencies where you prove that you are a renewable resource forester and that you're planting and you get, they sell you these certifications And then all of a sudden, in the same breath, you have to be considered certified renewable to cut trees, but your same process, that same wood is not considered a renewable resource. I just really hope people look at this, because just because we're not New York City, and just because we don't traditionally vote for the people in Albany, doesn't mean we don't have rights as citizens in this state. Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a comment that I think at first blush, this kind of a decision from the administration in Albany seems almost like a bug, but my proposal would be, this isn't a bug, it's a feature of Governor Hochul's environmental plan. The people call it greenwashing sometimes, right, where the labels of environmental and sustainable and green are just tacked on to projects that benefit people who are financially in positions to benefit, foreign companies, higher tech solutions that maybe haven't been proven over time. And as my colleague mentioned, this is the shutting down of an established, proven, safe, environmentally safe system of producing energy, of converting energy into something to use. So I would encourage public and business owners, as well as our elected leaders in Albany, to be a little bit more critical when they hear, when someone pitches an idea to them and it is labeled as sustainable and environmental, whether it's EV charging stations, whether it's solar panels, whether it's developing a grid in a particular way, to really make decisions on the merits, not just the market of those proposals. And so I think we will see. I hope the decision changes. I hope we see a change as a result of ours and other bodies advocating for this.
Mrs. Haggard?
I don't know what the turnaround or the changes have been made, but as of March 31st, they're on electricity. They're not using, they're on the grid.
Last Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the turnaround is. Certainly, that had to be taken.
Anyone else? Sometimes different counties than we send it out to our other counties and the state police. Don't mind. Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? You just can't see it, no? Next. Oh, you voted yes? So next up, we have vacancy review committee. Mr. Dillon, are you?
Yes. So the vacancy review committee met on April 4th. The committee took up 8 requests and approved 8 requests. The 8 requests span 5 different departments. 1 that you'll see today in operations, 5 for services, and then 2 for finance. Currently, there at the beginning of the month, there were 86 vacant positions. And as far as the fill for the vacancies, we have a 94% immediate fill rate, a 1% fill rate for each of the categories of 30, 60, and 90 days, and a 3% held rate. So I think the county administrator usually reports on fill during probation and temporary as well. So these are positions the county administrator has the authority to fill if positions on probation or as a temporary position. We've had since the beginning of the year 10 temporary, 14 probation that fell into those categories. And so for our first and only vacancy, we have human resources.
Well, I'm gonna spend a few minutes on. The reason for requesting this position is that the work in HR has been evolving over the past few years, resulting in additional responsibilities. The additional staffing responsibilities have increased the workload, and staffing changes have added challenges in the department, resulting in constant cross-training and knowledge training, resulting in an inability to reasonably meet demands. Additional responsibilities include orientations have almost doubled since 2018, with 54 being held in 2001 and 47 being held in 2002, and they're normally done bi-weekly. This is an effort to help department heads decrease onboarding time and fill vacancies in a more timely manner. Starting in 2022, we provided civil training to several outside agencies, and much more is needed. There are 70 outside agencies. A more structured staff development initiative started in 2018. Approximately 8 in-person leadership training topics are provided every year. And in 2019, we increased these learning opportunities on an electronic platform, providing 8 to 10 leadership courses online. Affirmative action compliance is being addressed slowly, with still a lot more work to be done. Diversification efforts and plans need to be implemented. Policies and procedure implementation. We have civil service topics such as alternative tests, electronic canvassing, psychological testing, multiple appointments, Section 55A, leave procedures. Those are just to name a few policies and procedures we haven't been able to get to. Recruiting efforts have increased, and in 2022, we attended 6 school career fairs. We attend monthly Department of Labor virtual fairs, and employees must be available on the computer for that entire time. It's a 4-hour stint at a time. We held our first annual St. Lawrence County Career Fair ever last year. We created QR code business cards to hand out. We attended Gateways to Careers for the last 2 years at all-day events. And we still have a lot of work to do with the colleges, a lot of outreach work to do with colleges. All this time is like days. They take days out of our day. They take days to accomplish these career fairs. We continue to work on and increase our electronic capabilities. And in January, we launched our first online application and exam e-payments. A lot more work has to be done in that area with our human resources information system programs, information systems, to automate more processes and provide more information, such as like the electronic personnel change forms, code 266, things like that. More time commitment is needed during the budgeting process. I am not able to put in the time, not even close to the time that Rick would like me to be sitting in on these budget processes. Increased alternate testing opportunities have created a larger pool of candidates, and we've been doing this since 2018. Alternative exams take an entire day to monitor and coordinate. The number of exams held on Saturdays, number of exams held and Saturday work and Saturdays that are worked has increased over the past couple of years. So our HR techs and HR aides are exam monitors also. And so our exams are held on Saturdays. So at least 20 out of every 52 Saturdays my employees are working those Saturdays. So it's not just me working on Saturdays, it is all the way down, all the way through my entire staff. The number of, psychological testing for police and deputies started in 2021. These are entire days that we miss sitting with these candidates in monitoring. Coordination efforts with payroll have begun in 2023. Monthly meetings resulting in more work, such as we made changes to bargaining unit codes, status codes, exempt statuses. We're just going through the whole gamut of payroll personnel issues. We are going to be increasing the number of employees here at the county by 250 per diem employees here shortly for the election clerks, election inspectors, sorry. While they're per diem, staying now to work has to go into every onboarding, every offboard. There was an increase of 113 FTEs over the past 5 years. So all of these additional activities take a lot of additional time to accomplish on an ongoing basis. And these are just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So work that we are currently not getting done, or struggling to get done, or is suffering. Payroll certifications, what that is those are audits of our outside agencies. So we have to audit our outside agencies every single year. And that means we have to look over every single status change that has occurred in that agency. And we have to make sure that it was done correctly and it was done on the books, and we have to report all of this in our systems. So that's over 4,000 employees in these 70 agencies. So the personnel change processing, that's another area where we have 2 feet. Each tech has put 426s, those status changes that have yet to be processed. That is a constant foot high at any given time. Internal auditing, we haven't been doing internal auditings. We could be doing health insurance audits. We could be doing just pay, all kinds of auditing should be done. We have not been able to get to these. Affirmative action planning. A lot of work has to be done. We've taken some steps with our online applications where we can start tracking what ethnicity candidates are, but we're just starting this. This is something we should have had done many, many years ago. Filing and record maintenance, way behind. Currently, we're down 1 man, doesn't help things, but even when we're fully staffed at 6, we struggle with these things. Staff development, another area I know that you guys are constantly looking for us to increase our efforts in for supervisor level positions throughout the county. Customer service, our response times are not meeting expectations. I don't think necessarily expectations are reasonable at times, but we do get complaints that we're not responding in a good enough time period. And again, our HR information systems coordination, we're underutilizing our software that we have, several different softwares that we really need to get up to snuff on and start maximizing those programs for us. Payroll coordination. So that's another step. Like I told you, we just started in 2023. We've already made some changes, good changes. We're starting to coordinate things better. But right now, payroll has the duplication between payroll and HR is incredible. There's a lot of paper that is just duplicates. So we're hoping that this coordination effort will decrease that and have less duplication. Timely investigations when any kind of workplace violence, harassment, any kind of disciplinary, where it requires an investigation, which takes days to do, to coordinate all the witnesses, and that just throws us behind. And so those aren't always done in the most timely manner that we would like them done. Things that we're late on right now, I'm currently late on an annual report, performance evaluation, management manual, operations orientation for per diems, subsurface audits, munis updates, that's coming right now. The munis update, I can't even imagine where I'm gonna find the time to get that done. Our response times, our online orientations, those are things that are late that I'm still working on, that we're still moving forward with. There's also miscellaneous programs that come up all the time, like our healthcare workers bonus. That's in play until the end of 2024, so we're still processing those. There's a new help program, as you talked about here before, where they're taking away the competitive exam for certain titles for a certain period of time. So additional considerations, staffing challenges in the HR department. So our HR assistant, who's been there the very longest, about 13 years, I'd say, here at the county, or in HR, longer at the county, is retiring in 3 years. 2 to 3 years. She can walk out the door any day she's had enough. So she's been here the longest. We've had 4 promotions over the last 5 years, not including, so 4 promotions over the last 5 years we've had in my department alone. The average time of an employee in their current position right now is 2.8 years. And I am actually the one holding my position the longest in my department right now. So there's the promotion, so they're in all different jobs right now. I've held my job for 5 years. HR turnover over the past 5 years has been a little high, 3 retirements and 5 resignations, which included a relocation, someone leaving for better pay, 2 leaving for better pay, one went back to school, and 1 pursued a different career altogether. It just wasn't for her. We need depth in our HR function, and that's separate from civil service functions. So our HR functions, we need a lot more depth in, and that would help support our department heads a lot better than what we do right now. Workloads right now are unmanageable. All staff is, like I said before, working on evenings, working on weekends, even when there's no exams. So 20 days out of the year, there's exams on Saturdays, and we're still working on those other Saturdays. The error rates have increased. I hate to throw out all these things that are negative in my department, but we have, things are suffering. So I did go out and I did some research. I did a survey so that I could give you some numbers. So after I recognized our real struggles and what we needed to accomplish, I wondered about our staffing level. So the standard HR ratio is 1 full-time HR staff member to every 100 FTEs in the organization, which equals 1.0%. This is the standard that doesn't take into consideration civil service responsibilities, which 50% of our job is civil service. Every single one of us in my department. So SHRM, that's the Society of Human Resource Management. It's a professional organization representing more than 275,000 members in 160 countries, published a study that showed that the average HR ratio for medium-sized organizations, which we would fit into 250 to 1,000 employees or FTEs, their ratio is 1.22%. That's the average. And they showed an average for large employers, they showed an average of 1.03%. St. Lawrence County is sitting at 0.69% ratio. We're way under. I then went out and I surveyed my peers in other counties. And I had 11 responses. Out of the 11 county surveyed, 1 other county came in as low as 0.69%, like we are. And they had only 46 outside agencies where we have 70. So they have 60%, 65% of the number of agencies we have. The next lowest county came in at 0.79% and only had 35 outside agencies. So they had 50% of the outside agencies we have. The next lowest county came in at 0.9%. They only had 28 outside agencies, 40%. The other 8 counties came in at 1.0% or higher. Remember, we're sitting at 0.69%. So we came in the lowest, we tied with 1 other county, and then there was a. So if St. Lawrence County added 1 full-time employee, it would bring us to 0.81% ratio, still under the majority of all these counties. And if we added 2 full-time employees, it would bring us to 0.92%. And that's still with us, that's our staffing ratio with a 70 outside agencies, which no other county has. We really need 2 full-time employees. I'm only asking for 1. While St. Lawrence County has the 70 outside agencies, the next highest county in the survey came in at 46 agencies. Outside agencies, along with the St. Lawrence County employees, like I said before, represents over 4,000 employees that we monitor compliance, maintenance, supplies. The other areas of the survey I focused on were the top 2 HR titles at these facilities, at these agencies. And they came in as, one came in as personnel officer and director of labor relations. One was personnel officer and deputy personnel officer. One was director of HR and HR administrator. Personnel officer and deputy personnel officer. One was HR director and deputy HR director. One was personnel director and deputy personnel director. St. Lawrence University, interestingly, had 2 HR titles, director of labor relations and director of employee benefits. So St. Lawrence County has HR director and HR assistant. That's the next highest What I'm looking to do is create a position at a level that can really fill in for the director when they're not available and separate the high-level duties into 2 positions while moving some duties from the techs to free them up for other duties to help the entire department. The new position would create a separation of the typical HR functions, most of the typical HR functions, and labor relations. And the new position would be civil service functions and benefit administrations. And like I said before, half of the job that we do is civil service. So I think taking that half off the HR director would free that director up for more support for department heads and your HR functions. Let's see, there's a real need for more time, just like I said, in the HR functions such as investigations, disciplines, affirmative action, general department head support, which would continue to be done by the director since civil service, since this position will be heavily involved in civil service, the one I'm asking for, we would be seeking candidates with experience in this area, which will probably not produce very many qualified candidates. What I envision this position to be is an opportunity for advancement within the St. Lawrence County Department. Mostly, I think that growing these people up from HRH, tech to assistant to this personnel officer, I think it's a good ladder of advancement. That's one of the reasons we lost employees, because there's really no advancement opportunities. So that I think would be very helpful in our department as well. The HR position. Oh, in the HR position, the director of HR position, in the future could be filled just as well with an outside candidate, depending on circumstances, because HR functions are similar throughout all organizations. That's kind of how I would see that working. This would be a competitive position, civil service competitive. But I also want to put out there, I did not create this, I'm not asking for this job for me, but I might be interested in this position if it goes through. I'm at a point where I just need this to change as well, or I would like to look at a change possible. But ultimately, adequate staffing will help ensure increased customer service, decreased errors, prevention of burnout, increased compliance, and forward progress.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seized on one statement you made, Mrs. Twiggy, and that is you need 2 people, but you're asking for 1. Why?
Why am I asking for 1? Because honestly, I don't know that you would actually give 2, and I want the chance to make this separation, this structural change within my department to see how it works, to see how well we can accomplish what we've been accomplishing and what we can accomplish with that before I would go and ask for an additional employee as well.
So that could be coming.
It could be, but yes, it could very well be, because I do think it's needed desperately, but I really want to see how this.
Thank you.
Great.
The weekend test monitors, is that being done by full-time employees in your department?
So this is how the exams work. So each exam that's held has to have 1 chief exam monitor and 1 regular monitor. We do have some per diems that do exam monitoring focused on weekends, but we have to have at least one person from our office in those exams. Every exam has to have 1 chief exam monitor and 1 monitor, and every room has to have 1 chief exam monitor and 1 monitor. We are off, every 50 candidates have to have 1 chief and 1 monitor. We are often more than not. I'd say, I don't even know if we've ever held just one test on any given Saturday. So we usually hold multiple tests on Saturdays. We can have multiple rooms going at one time. We could have 150 examinees in the room. So that dictates who we need in there. We try to use the per diem staff, but we always have to have somebody within our office, at least 1. We usually try to have 2 who can know how to coordinate it, know how to answer those questions that they come up, give the accommodations that are needed when they're asked for, that kind of thing.
Johnny, you have listed hours per week 35. Is that realistic? If they work more than that, do they get paid overtime?
So I have 4 hourly employees in my office, so they are eligible for overtime. Basically, time between 35 and 40, where they get paid out at, and over 40 hours a week would be at time and a half. Those exam monitoring hours do count toward overtime hours because it is in their job descriptions. They get paid a different rate, but it's in their job description, so those hours have to count toward overtime hours for those people. And then there's 2 of us that are salary exempt, where we don't get paid for anything other than. And this position would be salary exempt as well, so there would be no overtime payment. It meets
Also,
those.
when you gave us the percentages of number of employees or workers, is that based on workers that are for election purposes? Do you base that in your percentage figures, or is it based on the current active employees?
Oh,
of
so-
890?
Yeah, so what it was is I took when we're fully staffed, we're not fully staffed right now. But when we're fully staffed, we have 6 employees. So I took the 6 employees divided by our budgeted FTEs, that's 864. So it would have included our 250 per diems. However, I think that only comes out to be like 7 FTEs
7.1. So those 250 people count as 7.1
out of our 864. So even without them, we're still under.
How many hours do they work, or how many days average for the election employees, those 1,140?
Let's see.
So typically, it depends on how many election days we have, the primary, they work primaries and they work election days. They do some training prior to that as well, so part-time, some part days. But yeah, so the 250 are equal to, if we had 7 full-time positions, that's what those 250. The equivalent of 7.1 full-time positions.
You mentioned, you may have mentioned, I just, how, you mentioned like dates. Can you let us know what are those positions and how long have they been?
So the HRA position is vacant right now, and that's only been vacant about. And we have the new hire coming in this coming week.
Yeah. That's
Mr. Lynn?
You mentioned a number at the beginning of your presentation, Johnny. New employees with full-time equivalents. Was it 113? Was that the correct number that I heard?
Oh, so the increase of FTEs over the past 5 years is 113 FTEs
So
overall in our.
average what, about 20 a year? 25?
Yeah.
Okay, so with those people, you have to orient them and go through a process. Typically, how long does that take?
Orientations,
I mean, a day?
yeah, an orientation is almost a day, it's almost 5 hours. But then, all the paperwork involved in it is days worth of work. And then the upkeep, maintenance of all those employees throughout the entire year. And then offboarding takes, again, probably 3 or 4 hours offboard. From our perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Connie, did you say this would be a position from within, or because of the salary level, is this a
So
good
it's-
salary from outside to apply?
Yeah, it is. So I'm envisioning what I would envision, because it's heavy in civil service, and that will be what we're looking for in this person, because it will be the civil service. would envision and hope that we could grow them from within, right? Where's the HR? Be competitive, we build it emotional, and we build it.
And what was the feeling of the committee? They all support.
Bill,
So. Mr. Chairman, I will take it to Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
Just a question, how does Ruth weigh in on this?
I think, the administrator recognizes the needs as part of the vacancy committee as well. On forward, she recognizes the workload and way that things have grown in HR and at the county, resulting in HR. And, you know, as Johnny and Ruth came up with a plan to look at this one position now and how that works within the office of splitting up those duties rather than go towards, you know, the two positions now. I think that was a good plan that they came up with together. We really need to, you know, this gets put in place, take a look at it, measure the success, and see how those duties you know, work out with the new structure. So I think you know, she bring it forward for consideration, and realizes that we need to do something.
Mr. Smithers.
Yeah, Johnny, I'm trying to recall some of your comments that you made during the description of this job position. And so just to clarify, did you say that this position would be able to fill in for the HR on occasion? And did you say that this position that's being created is something that you would possibly be interested in filling?
I'm maybe interested in applying for that position. I mean, yes, I did say that I would be interested in applying for that position, so.
So then, if that was the case, you probably meet all of the qualifications and we'd be happy to have you. Then we'd be looking for an HR director then. Just because I don't know, how much of a differential in the salary would there be between the HR director and this position?
There's one band, so it's kind of like, and the other thing I looked at when we looked at this was the other departments. Usually a lot of departments have a department director and deputy director, and this is kind of what this is like. Different separation, different title, because we're separating civil service. And they really should have that civil service personnel officer title, but same type of thing. So it's one band, which is pretty typical across the organization in all departments.
So just to clarify, this is grade 5 with a base salary of 78,980. The director position is a grade 6 with a base salary of $90,050.
Mr. Light.
So how did this salary come to pass? The amount, how was that determined? That what the offering salary would be here, 120,000 a year?
That's what they say.
That is the net county cost. So that is the salary plus the benefits.
I understand that. How was it determined?
The way it's determined, you
How
mean
did you
the band?
set the rate for this position?
Okay, so like I was just explaining, we were
Yes.
looking at it from each department has basically a director and a department director. They're usually one band apart, so we looked at that and we did this. And we looked at the duties and we looked at the significance of it, and that's kind of how Bruce and I looked at it, that's what we did.
So then what you did is you looked at other departments within the county. Okay, or outside the county?
Well, inside the county, I didn't look at the salary ranges for the ones outside the county,
Okay.
I looked at titles.
Okay, and you looked at the difference in bands between a deputy and the holder of the position?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. You did a good job explaining.
Anybody else have any questions? So for committee reports, agricultural and farmland protection board, Mr. Denise.
We met, met on Thursday, April 6th. And a presentation from Jason Wolford. Representing the Ag and Farmland Preservation Group. And talk about the involvement of solar development that the has. And actually going to send the slide deck. I believe tonight. See that, I would like to forward that to the board. I don't know if you received it, or if Matilda received that yet, Jason, you know.
I don't believe.
So I would request the board. Talked about Article 10, Executive Law 94C, which essentially is a state. Gives the state the ability to supersede local law. And yeah, well, I think you'll find the slide deck be interesting. I can't get into it. We also added six new properties to Ag District 1 and 2, 1 and 5.
Any questions for Mr. Denise? Okay. Alternatives to incarceration board, Mr. Burke.
Tim sent me an email saying that the BCJS grant for alternatives to incarceration was awarded, and that he would be putting forth the resolution for next operation for the board to consider. Again, same amount as last year, and it goes to pay a portion of the supervisor's salary that's responsible for alternatives to incarceration.
Next up is, or did anybody have any questions for Mr. Burke? Sorry. Okay, seeing none. Next up is the Board of Trustees for Supreme Court Library, Mrs. Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing to report this time.
Next up is the Emergency Services Advisory Board. We found that Ann Smith, who did just a lot of what EMS is planned for and the education system and everything, she left us and she took another job title with the state. So she's no longer part of our support, and they are putting together who's going to take those responsibilities. We didn't have a lot of information. Most of the people who are normally there were not there. We barely made a quorum. So on the 25th of April, we're going to go to Potsdam and have a additional meeting of the group of people who are looking at some recommendations that people have put together. I think it's going to be at the Potsdam department. But the state has made changes in how they want the law to be under public health. And they're going to bring those changes to us because Mark Devers was in Albany looking at what they were doing at that particular day. He'll be bringing all that back, and I will bring that to you after that meeting, simply because there's specific changes that the state is gonna make in education. They've done away with one of the intermediate EMS positions. So where you had a basic EMT and then like a mid-advanced EMT and then a paramedic, they're only gonna have EMTs and paramedics. There's not gonna be the middle of the road opportunity that has more skill set, but less educational time with it. So be better served by reading the changes that the state has made. And as soon as I have that, I'll get you all a copy of it, okay? Next up, do you have any questions? Okay, next up would be Environmental Management Council. Does Ms. Terminelli give anyone her report? So then we're on to the Fire Advisory Board with Mr. Denisha.
Fire advisory board is scheduled to meet this month, Thursday, April 20th. And Matt has we spoke about the couple responding apps. There are two that we're familiar with, Active 911, and the other one is not responding. That's actually conducted a survey with all the fire chiefs across Adams County. Has had a response from most of them, and that's something that we're going to be discussing. Our advisory board, in addition to the proposed law.
Gotcha, thank you. Questions? Mr. Smithers?
Yeah, Larry, just to ensure, current law provides for income tax deduction of $200 for renters. Is that going to still be applicable if this goes through? Because a lot of volunteers are not property owners, they're renters.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that we found, that number of volunteer, whether firefighters or EMS folks, they're not property. This will, this law is written, makes business.
That, Taggart?
Thank you. Mr. Denisha, did they keep that, there's a long list,
Currently,
and they couldn't take advantage of that.
because it was not a property, they couldn't take advantage of property tax, no, but they could take advantage of income.
It's 200.
Next is Mr. Burke.
Larry, the $200, so that if there's the wife both involved, each gets $200.
I don't know that.
I didn't know whether they allowed. I don't, well, my question is that if that's the case, it would be good for our volunteers to know. $300. Each could claim 200.
Yeah, but the new law. Assessed value.
Mr. Lightfoot.
And if the state was serious about this, they let the firefighters either property owners or non-property owners get a credit on the tax. Then everybody gets it and everybody would get the same, I would assume. To try and fiddle around with this, somebody's gonna get hurt. Or somebody is gonna get what is next to our neighbor is getting. So there's some unfairness in, just granting a $300 tax reduction. When you don't own any property, you're not gonna get anything. Tax credit allows for that to happen. Now, if the state of New York can pass out tax credits and everything else in the motion picture industry and everybody else under the sun, this is another place where it would really mean something to the volunteers in the state of New York and not to the motion picture industry from California.
I concur,
Thank
thank you. Anything further from anyone? Okay, moving on. To the sorry,
Yeah, the other thing I want to point out, and Mr. Lightfoot, touched on it, I think inadvertently, but the tax credit or is on your assessed, the property assessed value. So the state, once again,
yes.
the state has
Passing it
said,
out.
we're going to be magnanimous and we're going to we're going to give away more of the county's money.
So
Surprise, surprise.
early socialism. So inter-county legislative committee, we did not have a meeting in March because NICEAC was so close to the end of February. As of this month, April, there's gonna be no more Zoom meetings for inter-county. You're gonna have to travel to Herkimer or to wherever. So 2 years ago, Mr. Lightfoot, we discussed, or 3 years ago, we discussed, what do we really get from inter-county? Most of the time, whatever we get from inter-county is whatever NICEAC publishes that month. So I don't know if we as a board want to continue, once you're getting into 400 miles of travel for a day and a whole day to go down and listen to basically what NICEAC is already up to. And somebody gets reimbursed for that. That's sort of an expensive proposition to go to more than a couple times a year. Happy to attend again in the fall when the snow comes and they say, now we can have Zoom meetings again. But for the summer, they're not gonna have Zoom meetings at all. And I don't know that I want to travel unless somebody else really thinks it's worthwhile. Everything I get every month is exactly what NICEAC is discussing. And the same resolutions that go to NICEAC come from these towns when they pass them. So thoughts on whether or not it's worth our while to pay that mileage for somebody to travel for that? Sure.
And you're right, we did discuss that years ago, and it sort of fell by the wayside, the subject matter. You and I discussed what exactly St. Lawrence County benefited from your membership or a county legislative membership on the committee. And I think that you would agree that there's really nothing you can put your finger on that is a benefit. Other than the comradeship of, attending something with other counties, at times establishing relationships that might be fruitful. But to have a cost associated with that, to just based on what I know about what they do at their meetings. One of them was they visited a jail in Oneida County or one of those. And it just doesn't seem worthwhile to me. So I would make a motion to, well, I guess this is the chair's appointment, is it not? So I'm not gonna make any motion. I would just suggest that it's been looked at. The legislator that's been assigned to that committee feels the same, I believe, feels the same as I do. And I would ask the legislature to consider chairman, not to appoint anybody to this committee going forward.
Mr. Hall,
Madam Chair, if we do decide to not attend, And the leading reason is because of the increased cost of travel. I would recommend considering letting that committee know, the reason, so they can take account of that, because I would be surprised if we're the only county that has that reason.
Most of the meetings are in like right around Glens Falls, Herkimer, right in that little band, and they're really the only counties that go. And I discussed with them why I was concerned, the travel, the time it takes, because you go, you have lunch, they talk for 45 minutes. You can read everything they're gonna talk about in NICEX stuff. It's always there. And I don't really like the idea of charging the county. I don't charge the county for any other mileage that I do, but you're talking about a 200 miles round trip for a 45-minute meeting.
Rita, you're saying that you would recommend suspending attendance in person for the summer, but when they resume the possibility of Zoom, you'd be willing to do that again?
I'd be willing to attend by Zoom simply because there's no cost to the county. It's just my time.
That makes sense to me.
I mean, really, more than one of us could Zoom in. But I mean, it's not like there's high-level secret talks about something that we can't have Zoom. It just seems to be, they like to go to a restaurant. The restaurants are nice. Moving on to the jury board with Mr. Sheridan.
Madam Chair, the jury board has not met since my last report.
Thank you, sir. The planning board, Mr. Fay.
We will be meeting Thursday, April 13th. Shall report tonight.
Thank you, sir. So under old and new business. Oh. Next one. Okay. We have a last minute addition. So as an addition under new business, I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for solid waste department for the purchase of a comprehensive insurance policy that Don Chambers is going to speak to. Moved by Mr. Lightfoot, seconded by Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead, Mr. Chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to start out by apologizing that this resolution failed to go to Finance Committee and go to the last board meeting. However, so thank you for considering it this evening. This resolution will allow the Solid Waste Department to continue to have its comprehensive insurance covering equipment, mobile, and also our properties that are under the jurisdiction of the Solid Waste Department. If the board is okay with obtaining the signature from the chair so we could have no lapse in coverage, that would also be appreciated. And again, my apologies for it not making finance and board meeting last month.
So I have a motion, if I can, after, under the now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Legislature authorizes, we need to add authorizes the chairman to sign a contract and right here authorizes the chairman to sign a contract and the treasurer to modify the 2023 budget. Just someplace in here we have to fit in. So, and the chair, yeah, okay, I know. So can I get a second for that modification? Mr. Reagan and Mr. Fay. It's a friendly amendment, so if everyone's agreeable, we don't really vote on it. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, I've got a couple. I've already signed this, by the way, just because of the timeliness. April 12th is the day. And this is a renewal, correct? This is a renewal to the same carrier?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my one concern is when I look at page 1, the date prepared was March 14th of 2023. Did we get any notice prior to that or no?
We've been working with this company and trying to update the asset list and information. So that unfortunately it took some time, but we've been working with them, I believe, since in November to bring this forward. As I said, I apologize that it did not make it to the finance in March as it should have. But unfortunately, we wouldn't have had to go through this exercise of signing before the board.
Okay, I'm gonna make a call tomorrow, just out of my own curiosity. But New York State, I believe it's still in effect, is any rate increase over 10% has to give 45 days formal notice from the carrier for a renewal, which this would not. But like I said, I've signed this. It's just my own curiosity more than anything. And you've updated coverages and things like that, so I understand it. But I do have a little bit of concern with that. But
Yes.
worry about that.
Mr. Forsythe, we also are adding over $1.5 million in additional assets with the new recycling transfer station.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smithers, did you still have a question or are you okay?
So you said 10%, Dave. Is the total cost of this, as listed here, $52,557.51? And is the increase indicated $16,558? Are those, am I interpreting that correctly?
That's above what we had budgeted in the 2023 budget when we were putting that together. I would have to get back to you on the exact number of what our amount was last year. But as I said, we also added assets. So it's not just an increase in cost over the same coverage. We added an additional transfer station. But I can get that information of what the cost was last year.
Actually, Dylan has that number. We could just.
The 2022 costs we had at 35,384. 35,384.
So
Thank you,
that's
Dylan.
more than 10%, isn't it, Dave?
Well, there's coverage change too.
Anybody else have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John, very much for coming in. I know it's later.
Not a problem.
So any other new or old business? Seeing none, do we have a need for executive session?
We do, just for appointments only.
Thanks. Do I have a motion to go into executive, Mr.